Just a follow-up question to our break-even age video for Social Security. How would the break-even age change if I invest from my full retirement age to 70? So the idea is that if you could delay or you could keep more money invested in that sense.
Okay, so this, yeah, I'll share this slide that we showed last week, um, not 2 weeks ago when we
Yep.
did a show. So last show. So what this is showing here is just, what's the break-even age? If I'm 67 in this case, what if I waited till age 70? Well, what's happening is for 3 years I'm not getting money I could be getting,
Yeah.
right? Now, 3 years from now I'm going to get more,
Hmm.
but when does that more catch up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from this slide here, you can see I have lots of numbers here, but I got a couple red arrows on the columns that really matter.
Yep.
And what happens is it stays bold when you're ahead in one scenario. So the green scenario there stays bold until age 79. And then the yellowish mustard a colored scenario, which is where you waited until age 70, right? You can see you got $0 for the first 3 years, right? It starts to pass it up. So this is total accumulative benefit that
Yep.
you got in those two scenarios. So after age 79, you're losing. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so again, in this particular case, if we assume Social Security is going to survive, which I do personally, but then you have to, am I going to survive?
Yeah.
Am I going to make it past age 79? It's hard to tell, but on average, should. And then I would be better off have waited in that particular case until age 70. Now, the question that came up, and this is an interesting question, I did seminars for Social Security for quite some time, and this came up quite often. What if I took the Social Security, I don't really need it, but I took it at age 67 and I invested it?
Hmm.
Would I be ahead? How much longer would I move out the break-even age? So it's a really good question. I will say one thing that's very important to understand. Although I've been asked about this a lot of times, and have had 6,000 financial plans I think we've done, and hundreds and hundreds of clients. I've actually never seen anybody do this.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. It's obviously not an easy thing to do. Again, I've never seen anybody do it. But let's just look at the numbers and see what happens. All right. So he's made up a little spreadsheet here. So we got same thing, $2,500. Now we're going to use different interest rates here. So first, we're just going to use a 6% interest rate.
Yep.
A simple, could go more conservative, may put it in CDs or something, because that's one of the things we have to figure out here is, okay, we're going to take the money for 3 years. Every single month, we're going to put it in some investment and we're going to keep it. What are we going to earn,
Yeah.
right? And honestly, we could actually lose money too, which, we won't talk about that here. But and so the effective interest rate is 6.17%. That's just because you're compounding monthly by putting the money in every month. And 12 months in a year. And let's just say that the cost of living increase average for Social Security is 2% a year going forward.
Yep.
All right. So if you look here, the dark blue shows when you're ahead on one or the other. So taking at full retirement age, in this case, age 67, you're ahead until age 80. Okay, so the break-even point with no investment was 79.
Yep.
And it's now 80 by making 6%. Okay, so it added another year to the break-even point,
Mhm.
which is something. But again, if I feel like I might live past age 80, I still might be better off waiting until age 70 to take my Social Security in numbers
Yeah,
scenario.
the thing is with investments, there's always a risk. And so if you're guaranteed 8%, that's why usually we take investment out.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the things, the growth on your Social Security is guaranteed to grow at 8% a year. And so that's where it makes it difficult to pass up as far as that goes. But let's look at some other rates of return. And so this is from Vanguard. They have a really cool thing. Anybody can look this up. You look up Vanguard risk return chart, and this is the first thing that comes up in Google, at least for me. And what they've got here, and again, I left all the small print in here, so if you guys want to stop this and read this, but they have done a calculation, a really long-term one, from 1926 through 2019.
Yeah.
So the Great Depression, the World Wars, to the whole 2008, the pandemic, all of it's not pandemic's not in there. 2019 is the end, but it's enough of a time frame to be more sure of what the numbers are. So average rate of return for a 60% stock and 40% bond portfolio is 8.77. The best year was 40. So that'd be great if you have to put your money someplace, and you made 40. That'd be spectacular. The worst year would be negative 27. So and it lost 22 out of the 94 years. So this is something to consider. Where are you going to put that money, and what are you going to make? Because we know we're going to make an 8% guaranteed return, right, on the growth by waiting from 67 to 70 in this case. Here I can make 8.77% by taking the money, right?
Yeah, but one of your years could be possibly down.
Yeah, that's important to understand. And, there's a better chance that they're not, right? There's only 22 out of 94, but there is a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens if it grows at 8.77% instead? Well, kind of the same thing, all same parameters, just change the rate of return. The effective, interest rate's now 9.13 because of the compounding. It added one more year, right? So now we're up to 81 if we can make that kind of money on an average basis over this time frame. And there's a lot of little nuances here, because when you're dollar cost averaging in the market, you could actually make more money because you bought a couple times where it was low and it comes back at the end of that 3-year period. There's a couple different pieces here that are interesting, but it added another year. And then let's say somebody wanted to go more aggressive. I remember one time a gentleman in the audience said, well, I make 12%, and I actually met with that gentleman and he was making really good money, but that was during the really boom times of 2020. And I'm not so sure he did that forever, but if we look at the long-term return for the market itself, it's 10.29%, right, from 1926 to 2019, according to Vanguard. Best year is 54, worst year is 43. That's a calendar year. Yep. The worst drop was actually 87% from high to low. That was a Great Depression, but nonetheless. And 26 years of loss instead of 22, right? So still a chance of some loss. What happens if we up the return to 10.29? Effective rate goes to 10.79. It didn't actually change the years. It's still the same. Not enough differential in rate of return to move it. It's still 81 is the break-even age. So if you live to 82 or beyond, you were better off in this particular case waiting until age 70. And again, there's a lot of little nuances here. We're still kind of scuffing over the surface here with this, but I think this is a really interesting look at it. I don't have any real problems with people taking Social Security early. I do think, understanding the math, and then it just comes down to, what's your personal outlook. Again, the things that I see are pretty consistent. People want to take it early because they're afraid they might not live that long, which is legitimate. Or they feel like Social Security might go out of business and they want to take what they can while they can. I'm not so sure I agree with that one, because that's been the concept of Social Security going out of business has been talked about since the 40s. And I think it continues to go. It's too important. Too many people need Social Security. So then it becomes an issue of, can you afford it? Right? So 58% of Americans take Social Security at age 62. Only 8% take it at age 70. Right? And a lot of that, in my opinion, is because people need the money. Right? And so they can't afford a standard of living without it, and they take it as soon as they can. And it's, and that's what it's there for. It's a safety net. There's nothing wrong with that either, right? You do it. So, but if you can afford it, and you feel like you might live for a while, then really need to look at these numbers and kind of consider what you might be able to do.
Yeah, and you're always there to take a gamble in a sense. But you're kind of, how do you weigh the odds? How do you stack the odds in your favor?
Yeah, investing and finances are a lot about probability, right? So when I'm in right now, the market is in an upward trend, right? It is. And so the probability is that it stays in that trend. As a matter of fact, if we look at that 94-year period, only 26 out of 94 years did it lose money. So
Yeah.
the probabilities are up, right?
Hmm.
And so we invest with that probability in mind, right? And so this is a probability analysis also. And so the probability here is at age 70 works pretty well because you're likely to live past these points of time. And again, here's the thing that I think about. When you pass away and all your family's around you and what have you, nobody's going to be bemoaning not taking Social Security earlier, right?
Hmm.
However, I do have clients that bemoan the fact that they did take it earlier because now they're in their 80s and they are struggling somewhat financially and could have used more money. And they took it just because they wanted to take it.
Hmm.
And so I think that's the bigger risk, is that long-term living longer and not having enough money to keep up with everything. And so upping the amount that you can get from Social Security, I mean, so this is $3,496, right, at age 70 versus 2706 is what you're getting if you take
Yeah.
it at age
So an extra
67.
$800.
That's a lot of money. It's, it's just going to come every single month, right? So that's not bad. So that's significant to me. So something to think about along those lines. Anyway, so that's a great question. Appreciate whoever asked that in the comments, and keep them coming. Put them in comments, send them into the email address, anything you'd like. We'll try to answer them.